This episode goes out to Adriel in Canada. Hi there, Garrett Robinson here. Welcome to the 11th episode of the Nightblade Epic Podcast Season 2. Two quick announcements this week. First, a reminder, don't forget to pre-order the latest Underrealm novel, A Cloak of Red by Brenna Gawain. You can get it now at underrealm.net/ttk. Have you ever had the experience of reading a book and having it be nothing like you thought it was going to be, but exactly what you needed to read at the time? That's exactly what happened to me with A Cloak of Red. Of course, my experience was slightly different than yours is going to be because I worked with Brenna on the book. But there's a big difference between the idea for a book and actually reading a book in your hands. Reading A Cloak of Red was like connecting with a best friend you haven't seen in years, except they've become way more epic and awesome than you ever remember them being. I can't say it enough, you're going to love this book. So go pre-order your copy right now at underrealm.net/ttk. Our second announcement is another big one. We just released the audiobook for Shadeborn, the fourth book in the Nightblade epic. And this book is where the story starts to get truly epic. You've been listening to the podcast, so you know that Lauren's story starts out relatively small in scope. That all changes in Shadeborn. I don't want to give any spoilers, but let's just say this. After Shadeborn, you're never going to look at Underrealm the same way again. You can get Shadeborn right now wherever audiobooks are sold, except Audible. Yeah, we know it's annoying, but I promise it's not our fault. Audible just takes longer to publish books. For some reason we will never understand. It'll be there in a few weeks, promise. And in the meantime, you can pick up Shadeborn on other sites like iTunes or audiobooks.com. Okay, now it's time for today's episode. Today, you're getting Chapter 15 of Mystic. When we left off, Lauren had made a secret deal with Zane to save them both from the mystic woman pursuing them. Enjoy! Mystic, Chapter 15. With their plan laid, they could only sail on and wait for their pursuers to catch them. The day passed in uneasy silence, and though they all pretended not to, each of them looked back often at the white canvas on the horizon. Lauren threw her line over the ship's stern and was pleasantly surprised to hook a fish almost immediately. Jem and Annis cheered as she pulled it aboard, but she snatched it away from them with a glare. "Upon Zane's shoulders rests our doom," she said. "Half of this is for him." They both grumbled, but Lauren ignored it. The boat had a small brazier fixed near its mast, and after gutting the fish, Lauren fried it. Zane devoured the white flesh in moments, scorching his fingers in his impatience. The rest of them took more time, savoring their few bites each. Lauren threw the line again, hoping for another success, but the day passed without a nibble. Night came, and Brimlad retired below decks after telling Zane to rouse him at any sign of trouble. Lauren tried staying awake to help the wizard watch, but hunger and weariness claimed her before the second moon had peaked above the northern horizon. She roused herself just before dawn to find Zane swaying at the tiller. She went to his side and looked off the boat's stern. The white sail had grown closer still. Now Lauren could see the vague black shape of a ship skimming across the water. "They are closer than I thought they would be," she said. "Closer than Brimlad guessed as well." The wizard's words slurred with weariness. "You should rest. Our safety depends upon you today." "Brimlad has been asleep a few scant hours," said Zane. "Brimlad will be as useful as a knothole if the ship holds a wizard as he guesses it does. I will rouse him." She stepped away, ignoring Zane's half-hearted protest. The captain came awake the moment she stepped below decks, and he went swiftly to replace Zane. The wizard stumbled down the boat's few steps and flung himself on a pile of blankets he had built into a sort of bed in the corner. Another day wore on, and now they could see the ship growing closer by the hour. Half a dozen times, Lauren thought she had better go below and rouse Zane, but each time she stopped herself. He would need every bit of his strength. Then, as the sun hung above them at full noon, Lauren saw something that froze her blood. All of them had given up any pretense of ignoring the ship behind them, and most of the time they kept their eyes fixed to its sails. It stood over 6 paces above the water without the mast, and the top of its sail stretched higher than the towers on the walls of Cabris. From its prow sprouted a figurehead of a beautiful maiden whose legs turned into a fishtail, and she held one arm stretched forwards as she sped above the waters. Staring at the figurehead, Lauren saw a slim, slight woman upon the forecastle. Her hands were on the rail, and she leaned out as though trying to capture the prow's spray in her billowing hair, and around her shoulders was draped a cloak of deepest red, its hood thrown back. "Is that—" muttered Jem. "Vivian," breathed Lauren. "The mystic. She sails with Yaren." And Vivian was not merely watching their boat. Her eyes glowed with a pale white light, a glimmer that Lauren could see even from so far away. "A wizard," said Annis. "The mystic is a wizard. She is the one who let them sail so fast, who brought them down upon us." The time had come, Lauren was certain. She spun and ran below decks, seizing Zane's shoulder and shaking him awake. "They are almost here, and the mystic is with them. Zane, she is a wizard." Zane blinked furiously as he woke, trying to understand her words. "What? Who, the woman upon the dock?" "Come and see for yourself." Zane followed her and studied the ship a long moment. "Worse and worse," he muttered at last. "I feel no stirring in the air. She is a mentalist." "A mind mage?" Annis shuddered. "What can we do?" "I can stop her, though I would rather she were an elementalist," said Zane. "Mentalism and elementalism are 2 sides of a coin, the same as transmutation and therianthropy. But I will have to watch for what she is doing, rather than feeling it with my own gift. It makes things less predictable." "Then do not give her the chance to attack," said Jem. "Strike first, so that she must defend against you instead." "I cannot know how strong the woman is," said Zane, "but she is at least strong enough to speed the progress of a large vessel, and I am weakened. I cannot hope to maintain a constant assault against her, but only to stave off her attacks as long as I can. Brimlad, how long before we reach the river gates of Wellmont?" 2 days at least, mayhap 3. Lauren seized Zane's arm, but she remembered what he had said about the captain. "Zane, you cannot hope to fight her for that long." She put extra effort into each syllable, hoping the wizard would catch her meaning. He had to use the maidstones, or they would be caught. Their eyes met, and Lauren could see he understood, but he reached up to remove her fingers, and not gently. "I will fight her as long as I can, and if I need help, I will ask for it." Lauren wanted to say more, but she saw Brimlad give them a suspicious look. So she held her tongue as Zane went to the rear railing, ignoring them all to look upon the Yaren ship. With nothing else to do, Lauren sent Jem and Annis below decks. Both complained mightily, but Lauren would accept no argument. "You will do us no good up here. I do not know if they have archers upon that vessel, nor if they would risk Annis's safety with arrows, but I, at least, will not take a chance." "You are no good up here either," said Annis. "Why not come down with us?" "I am in charge, or that, at least, is the way you seem to treat me. Do not always ask me what to do and then refuse to do it when I tell you." Annis scowled, but Jem ducked his head. He had pledged himself to her in Cabris when he had left Auntie's employ. Lauren worried often about keeping him safe, but at least she knew herself for a better caretaker than that woman had been. With the 2 of them safely stowed below, Lauren took her place at the ship's rear with Zane and Brimlad. The captain struggled to keep his eyes fixed to the front, steering the boat down the river's center, but ever his eyes returned to the ship and to Vivian on its bow. She was close enough now that Lauren could see her white-knuckled grip on the railing. "Does she really move the whole ship with her mind?" said Lauren. It seemed to her a mighty feat, and for a moment she feared the mystic might be a more powerful wizard than Zane after all. But Zane only scoffed. "If she tries, she is foolish. One need only push a ship's sail in order to move it. That is no easy task, but it is certainly easier than trying to grip the whole vessel in one's mind. Just as I pushed this boat with the wind, a mentalist can do the same with her thoughts." "Still, it is a great ship," said Lauren. "She must be very powerful." "I do not think she is as powerful as we might fear," said Zane, and he sounded calm. "If she were, they should have caught us many days ago." That was somewhat comforting, so long as Zane was not putting on a false show of confidence to reassure her. Then again, Zane has never been one to offer reassurance, false or otherwise, she thought. Lauren expected that there would be some signal, some clear sign of when the battle would begin, but in the end, there was nothing. One moment Vivian's eyes glowed, her hand still gripping the railing. The next, Brimlad's boat shuddered, and Lauren nearly fell to the deck. Above them, the boat's meager sail strained against its lashings, and the lines groaned in protest. "What was that?" said Brimlad. "She has gripped us," Zane spoke through gritted teeth. "A moment, and I will—" The boat shook again, but this time it lurched forwards through the water rather than slowing. Lauren fell to the deck, and Brimlad stuck out a boot to keep her from sliding towards the stern. "I broke her hold, but she will try again," said Zane. He spoke in grunts, as though he was in pain. "Hold on to something, and I will try to slow them down." The glow of his eyes intensified, and he pushed his hands forward with a smooth, flowing motion. The boat bucked and kicked underfoot, and Lauren leaped desperately for the nearest railing. Just as she wrapped her arms around it, a great swell of water rushed up and soaked her through. Her fine black cloak clung to her body. As she gasped and sputtered for air, a wave went swelling down the river towards the Yeren ship. Vivian scrambled to keep her feet as it struck, her hands gripping the rail ever tighter. But the ship was too large, and after tilting back and forth, it settled back out. It looked nearer than ever. "They draw too close," said Lauren. "They will ram us." "I see it," said Brimlad through gritted teeth, jerking the tiller to the left. Their boat drifted closer to the river's northern shore, but they moved slowly, for little wind filled their sails, and Lauren knew Zane could not spare a moment's effort to summon more. Hand over hand, she forced her way up the railing towards the front of the ship. If she could only get the pole Jem had used during their escape from Redbrook, mayhap she could prevent the ship from striking them. It might be a foolish plan, but she could do nothing else. The wind snapped and tugged at her cloak, whipping some of the water out of it. She looked back towards Zane. Now it seemed the wizard was pushing back at the ship with air. Lauren wondered if he could possibly summon enough to stop it in his weakened state, until she saw that he did not target the vessel at all. Instead, a blast of concentrated air slammed into Vivian. The mystic fell on her back and slid across the deck, vanishing from sight. But a moment later the gale subsided, and Vivian clawed her way back to the rail. "You almost had her! Keep going!" cried Lauren. "She can halt my magic, just as I can halt hers," said Zane. He sounded wearier than Lauren had ever heard him, even when they rode without sleep to escape from Jordell. The Maidstones flashed into her mind, but she dared not suggest them to Zane in the open, where Brimlad would surely hear. With one hand firmly on the rail, Zane reached the other forwards and plucked at the air. A stream of water erupted from the river's surface, and when the wizard lifted his arm, the stream rose ever higher. It faltered as Vivian made a gesture, but Zane swept upwards again and the stream resumed. With a hiss, it crashed upon the Yeren ship's two great sails, soaking them straight through. "Heavy sails will not slow them enough," cried Brimlad. "That ship is made for the sea." "Heavy sails, no." Zane's clutching fingers tightened into a fist, which he dragged to his waist. Water in the sails coalesced, forming something almost solid, like ice but warm. Where it descended, it tore great rents in the canvas. Soon both sails hung limp and listless in the air. Slowly the ship fell back as Brimlad's boat sailed on. The captain and Lauren shouted in victory, but their elation died quickly. From the sides of the ship sprang a dozen wooden spars, like the arms of a spider sprouting from its carapace. They plunged into the river and swept backwards, and Lauren realized they were oars. As the glow in Vivian's eyes brightened, Lauren looked up to see a hole appear in their own sail. It was the width of only a few fingers, but as she watched, it began to spread downwards. "No!" Zane thrust his left hand at the sail and cried a foreign word. The hole stopped moving. With his right hand, he swept at the mystic and spoke again. A blast of water and air nearly threw her from the foredeck. The Yeren ship drew closer still, now powered by its oars. While Vivian fought Zane's hurricane, he summoned forth a beam of flame. It slammed into the hull of the Yeren vessel just above the water, but then it vanished, leaving only a blackened smudge of charred wood. Zane tried again, but once more Vivian thwarted him. Worse, Lauren could see him swaying. The wizard was nearly dead on his feet. The time for caution was past. "Zane!" she cried. "You need Annis!" He risked a glance over his shoulder, but she could read nothing in the white glow of his eyes. "Very well," he said, his voice hoarse. Lauren dove for the hatch leading into the ship's gut. There she found Jem and Annis cowering in the corner. Jem had his head buried in Annis's shoulder, and his front was covered in vomit. Annis held him tightly, trying to reassure him, but the terror in her eyes seemed no less than the boy's. "A Magestone," Lauren gasped. "Give it to me. Only one." Annis stared with vacant eyes. "Now, Annis, or we are all dead." The shout threw Annis into motion. She dug in her pocket. The cloth packet spilled as she opened it, and black crystals scattered on the floor. Thankfully, none broke. Annis snatched one up and held it out. Without a word, Lauren took it and ran to Zane's side. He summoned no magic now, but only held his hands out in warding. Lauren could see no result, but she imagined he must be holding off the mystic. Yet the ship was almost upon them now, spurred by the oars. She gripped the rail with one hand and offered the Magestone with the other, careful to hold it where Brimlad could not see. "Here," she said, quiet and urgent. "Break it in half and put one piece between my lips," he said through gritted teeth. Lauren gripped the Magestone and bent. To her surprise, it broke as easily as a sliver of carrot. She lifted one piece and put it into his mouth, where he crushed it in his jaws. The glow in Zane's eyes turned black. Lauren jumped in surprise. His body shuddered, shoulders trembling under his brown coat. Then he went still, the look on his face almost serene. He swept his arms together in a calm, even gesture. Every sound died. Vivian was now too far away for Lauren to see her face, but the mystic's arms jerked back as if she had been shoved in the chest. Zane's hands curled, and from each sprang a white-hot beam of light. Only the way it licked at the air told Lauren it was fire, for it was not orange nor red, but glowed as white as the sun. The beams ate straight through the ship's hull, and with a great sweep of his arm, Zane tore a rent 7 paces long just at the ship's waterline. Steam plumed where flame met water, and Lauren saw many crewmen on the ship recoil from the insufferable heat. But Zane had not finished. With another sweep of his hands, he sent long tendrils of water shooting up. They wrapped about Vivian's legs and hauled her over the rail, dragging her beneath the river's surface. Her scream vanished with a splash. "Zane!" Lauren seized his shoulder and spun him around. Though she could see no emotion in the black glow of his eyes, the twist of fury in his mouth made her shrink back. But then the glow vanished, and Zane's face returned to normal. "She lives," said Zane. "See?" He pointed, and Lauren saw Vivian's red hood erupt from the water. The mystic sputtered and cried out, and a crewman threw her a rope. But the ship listed to the side, drifting towards the shore, or mayhap the captain steered it there, for it seemed clear the thing would sink soon after the damage Zane had done. Lauren breathed a sigh of relief. Good. The last thing we need is to stir even greater wrath from the mystics. The family Yeren seems intent enough on catching us already. And of course we would have broken your precious rule, said Zane, and his voice twisted on the word. Lauren looked at him again, but he seemed calm. Mayhap she had imagined his scorn. Brimlad looked over his shoulder at the two of them, and at the ship slowly sinking into the water. Good work indeed, lad. How on earth did you manage it? I knew you were something special among your kind, but this... Zane met Lauren's eyes, and she knew his mind. Do not speak of it. The mystic is uncommonly strong, he said, but not as strong as I. We were fortunate. Fortunate indeed, said Lauren. Soon the river twisted, and Lauren lost sight of the Yeren vessel just before it reached land. Brimlad pushed the tiller to bring them to the river's center, and under a hot sun they sailed on for Wellmont. This has been a production of Legacy Books, written and narrated by Garrett Robinson. The music in this podcast was created by Will Musser. Check out his incredible work at willmusser.com. That's WILLMUSSER.com. Today's letter is L. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.